Friendly Rental Act. I'm Sharon Harvey, President and CEO of the Cleveland Animal Protective League and the President of the Board of the Ohio Animal Welfare Federation. And with us today, we have Representative Juanita Brent, the Cleveland APL's VP of Operations, Aisha Dunlap, and Miss Diva, who's one of our shelter dogs, and Representative Sharon Ray. Representatives Ray and Brent are the primary sponsors of House Bill 277. Before they say a few words to you, I just want to tell you a little bit about the APL and why this legislation matters to us so much. The APL has served as Cuyahoga County's Humane Society for the last 110 years. Most people know us for our animal cruelty investigations work, our adoption program, our spay-neuter program, and as an animal shelter. But today, we are more than a shelter. We are an animal resource center for the animals and pet families in our community. As a recognized innovator and leader in animal welfare in the United States, the Cleveland APL is expanding our efforts to prevent pet homelessness by helping families access resources and care that will help them to keep their family together, and that means they with their pets. 10 years ago, we introduced Project CARE, our community animal retention effort, through which we've been providing guidance and limited resources to income-qualified pet owners in the city of Cleveland. We now are actively working to increase the assistance and services provided through Project CARE, and this bill will directly impact that work. As you can see, our mission is to foster compassion and end animal suffering. And there's no doubt that animals suffer when they lose the families who love them. And people suffer when they're left no option other than giving up their beloved pet. Miss Diva is a perfect example of that. She's 8 years old and she came to us when her owners lost their home. They did not want to surrender her, but they looked for other options and could find no other options. So they are now without Miss Diva, and that was what they had to do to find housing. And Miss Diva is now with us looking for a new family. And the one living being in this equation that had no voice was Miss Diva. As families with pets who cannot afford higher rents, or they cannot afford non-refundable pet deposits that come with many pet-friendly rental properties, often face insurmountable barriers to finding housing where their family can stay together, like Miss Diva's family. People living in poverty, senior citizens struggling on fixed income, and others facing any number of reasons why they're having financial challenges often face devastating choices, losing their home with nowhere to go to keep their beloved pet, giving up their beloved four-legged family member, or keeping them and becoming homeless or houseless. And that really happens. We have people all the time who we find have elected to live in their cars so they can keep their pets. The people suffer and the animals suffer. Already this year, nearly 100 pets have been surrendered to the Cleveland APL alone because their owners were facing challenges with landlords or had lost their homes and couldn't take their pets with them. Nearly 150 more were surrendered because their owners were moving. This is happening across Ohio, not just here in Cleveland and not just impacting the Cleveland Animal Protective League. House Bill 277 encourages landlords to offer pet-friendly rentals by providing them with a tax credit if they allow dogs and cats to reside in their rental units and meet the following criteria. They must not restrict dogs by breed or size. They must not impose non-refundable pet fees or additional pet rent. It is important to note, however, that landlords who don't want to permit pets to reside on their properties will not be compelled to do so by this law. They simply will not qualify for the tax credit. In closing, I'd like to say that I'm deeply, deeply grateful to Representative Brent and Representative Ray for sharing our vision, and you can see it truly is our vision, that the human-animal bond is cherished and supported, and for sponsoring this proactive piece of legislation that recognizes not only that pets are members of our family, but the benefit that they bring to people and communities. And yes, this bill is about helping animals, but it really is more about helping people. People who are struggling and in those times of hardship need their pets more than ever to help them through tough times. The Cleveland APL and the Ohio Animal Welfare Federation, the latter which boasts 99 organizational members from 60 Ohio counties that represent over 90% of Ohio's human population, are strong proponents of House Bill 277. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Representative Juanita Brent.
Thank you so much. I am so grateful to be a part of this. This has been a journey that I feel like is telling my story. I have been a long-term dog owner until recently, when my dog just recently passed. And when you are making a decision as a dog owner, you make decisions not just with yourself in mind, but also with your dog in mind. For me, I was fortunate to be able to live in a home where that was not a concern about me having a dog or not. But a lot of Americans, particularly here in Ohio, are dealing with the issue of where they're going to live. And if you do not have the opportunity to live in a home, then renting is really your only option of dealing with housing. 34% of Ohioans right now are renters. We are projecting by 2042 that a little over 50% of all Ohioans will be living in some type of form of rental housing. If people are going to be at that point where they're going to be renting, what's going to happen to their pets? This bill will address the needs of Ohioans to make sure that not only that Ohioans feel seen, but the animals that we love, the animals that we keep in our home, the animals that walk with us, that exercise with us, that protect us, also feel seen here in Ohio by incentivizing those that we have interacted with the most, and that's the landlords. So we really want to make sure that Ohioans are staying here in Ohioans. Do we want to make sure that eventually that this building becomes empty because everyone's taking an animal home? Then we need to make sure this bill is being passed, because we can't change everything about what's happening with the housing market, but what we can do is make sure we incentivize to make sure the people we love the most, our animals, are protected and seen. Now, this journey has been so great because we've been on it for a while, but I'm so glad I can actually do it with my colleague and my friend, Rep. Ray. Her story about her animal, about trying to decide on where she was going to live and where she's going to be, has been so inspirational for me, and we share the same story. So without further ado, I want to bring my colleague, Representative Ray, up here to the front too.
Well, thank you so very much for the kind introduction. I'm happy to be here today with my friend, Representative Juanita Brent, to talk about House Bill 277, the proposed tax credit for landlords with policies that allow companion animals in rental dwellings. As an older Ohioan who lives by myself, I know firsthand the benefits of having a companion animal, and while I suspected that pets improve our well-being, data provided by the Human Animal Bond Research Institute confirms it. Social isolation and loneliness are a growing public health epidemic. More than a third of Americans older than 65 live alone. Half of those over 85 live alone. According to an Ohio Department of Aging report, over 33% of Ohioans will be over the age of 60 by 2030. In a recent Human Animal Bond Research Institute study, 85% of respondents agree interaction with pets can reduce loneliness, and 76% agree that human-pet interactions can help address social isolation. Research continues to support pet ownership and human-animal interaction for improving social connections, providing social support, decreasing loneliness and depression. As we age and the responsibilities of home ownership become overwhelming, seniors are frequently faced with the dilemma of having to rehome their beloved companions. This legislation would provide an incentive to landlords who allow them to keep their pets as they move to rental units. I believe this legislation will help Ohioans, both landlords and tenants, by allowing folks to keep their companion animals as they transition through various housing options. I'm very happy to be here today. I can't say how much I enjoyed my tour of this facility. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely beautiful. The renovations are stunning and provide a much needed service here. So thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, a couple questions together.
Okay.
Just, I'm curious, Have we seen other states or any other cities adopt this and how it's been successful? And again, just speaking to that.
Yes,
know
there,
that-
well, I've got to think off the top of my head, there are. This bill is modeled off a bill that was moving through the legislature in Maryland, but we do know it has passed in various forms in other states. I think one difference about this bill from some of the others is it does not compel landlords to be pet-friendly. It still allows landlords that option, but provides the incentive that we hope is going to be enticing enough that people find themselves with more options when they're looking for a place to live with their pet.
Can you do a breakdown? I know I was talking to him over there about it. Let's say, just kind of simplifying it to people, like let's say there's 10 apartments, how much money would a landlord make off of it? I don't know if you guys have like a little comparison you could just toss out.
It's, yeah.
The way that the proposed legislation is set up, the credit would be $750 per unit, up to a maximum of $7,500. So this is just something to incentivize and offset any cost from having an animal in a rental unit. Okay.
Have you gotten any initial feedback locally or from any landowners or anything like that, or apartment owners?
When speaking to different groups, particularly land owners, are trying to figure out how they can deal with inflation themselves. So as they're trying to bring in ways to bring in people, the landowners that we spoke to thought this was a good way to incentivize to bring people in and be able to keep people, because there is a direct correlation that people who own dogs tend to be more settled in where they stay.
Is this an easy pass, or is this going to be a fight? I mean, talk about the reality of this getting done.
Well, Ray and I are both, this is a bipartisan bill, and we're hoping to be able to get more of our colleagues. One thing we realized from even just talking, a lot of our colleagues have animals. They have dogs and cats at home, and so this is not just something of some people's story. This is represents a lot of our colleagues' stories at the State House.
So that's a yes, it'll be easy to pass.
Yes.
We hope so.
We're hopeful.
If people want to support this, what should they do if they hear this story tonight? Should they call their local
They need to
representative?
call their local state representative and say, I support House Bill 277.
Simple.
Okay.
And it was just introduced yesterday, so.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
All right.
So very new.
Yes, yes.
Thank
I
you.
think I'm good, yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like this, this is nice and quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
Our team has gotten